President Trump with a lot to say about negotiations with Iran on his way out of the White House. Part of the problem, he doesn't know who he's supposed to be negotiating with.
Right now we have negotiations going on. They're not getting there. They are very disjointed. They're extremely disjointed. They're not able to get along with each other as leaders. They don't know who the leader is. Their military has been defeated. If we left right now, it would take them 20 years to build back that country, but we're not satisfied at this moment.
Let's bring in retired U.S. Air Force Brigadier General John Teichert for more on this. General, always great to see you. Thanks for being with us today. So the president seems happy enough to let Iran sweat out this blockade. This is what else he said.
They want to make a deal badly. And we have a problem because nobody knows for sure who the leaders are. It's a little bit of a problem, you know. The leaders have been wiped out along with their military, almost all of their military.
But General Jack Keane said that he doesn't know that this blockade in and of itself is going to work. What do you think?
John, I think we're in a race against the clock right now, whether the pressure of the blockade is enough to change the strategic calculus of the Iranian regime first, or whether the domestic and international pressure is stronger on President Trump. But I agree with General Keane that I think there's one thing that can accelerate the clock in our favor, and that is limited strategic strikes on areas that would be significant to the regime that can accelerate that clock in our favor.
What would those be?
I think regime targets and those regime energy targets like Karg Island that fund the regime. I think that fundamentally changes the ability of the regime to stay in power and remain in power and would get their attention to our benefit.
General Sandra here in New York, thanks so much for joining us. Here was another exchange with Peter Doocy and President Trump as Trump was departing the White House a few moments ago on blasting the hell out of Iran. Listen to what he said.
I mean, do we want to go and just blast the hell out of him and finish him forever, or do we want to try and make a deal? I mean, those are the options.
Do you want to go blast the hell out of him?
I prefer not. On a human basis, I prefer not, but that's the option.
I prefer not, said the president. On a human basis, I prefer not. That's an option, though. What did you think of his response there?
Sandra, I think that he's keeping his options open, and I think that combination of the economic pressure of the blockade and the possibility, if not the reality, of striking those targets that would get the attention of the regime, I think that mix of factors could be the winning combination to bring them to the table.
I mean, when you talk about this idea of blasting the hell out of them, you know, you can blast the hell out of their military infrastructure, but you get to a point, General, where there's not much military infrastructure left to go, that they still do have a lot of drones and ballistic missiles. Then you got to go after regime targets. But as long as they have all the weapons and the Iranian citizenry does not have the weapons, they're going to maintain power. Does the president have to try to create the conditions for people to be able to take to the streets again, as they did in January, not get slaughtered, and potentially effect an overthrow?
John, I think there's two avenues for it here. Either there's regime change that we could facilitate with more focused targeting of the regime, or something that I call regime enlightenment, which is making it painful enough for the regime or help them to realize that their future is not likely to remain the regime if we start striking those energy or economic targets that may change their calculus. And I think focusing our military strikes, if we start them, on those two types of target sets would change their mind potentially and help nudge us forward to a deal that would be favorable to us.
You know, I think people are heading into another weekend here, General, and they're just wondering, what is this timeline starting to look like to you?
Sandra, I think the challenge is, when is it significantly painful enough for the regime that either they don't believe they can remain in power now, or they don't have the avenues to remain in power in the future because we've strangled their finances? And hopefully sooner rather than later, with a combination of a good sound blockade and limited but strategic strikes, that we can accelerate that timeline again to our benefit.
Well, you know, they are nothing if not stubborn, so we'll see what lies ahead. General, always good to be with you. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much.
Be sure to like and subscribe for all the Fox News latest on YouTube, and catch full shows streaming now on Fox One.